You guessed it, we're going back to the Mediterranean to help some nobles build a bunch of buildings. Which is okay with me, because I happen to like helping nobles build a bunch of buildings. Well, let's find out what these noblemen are up to in Valletta. The Order of Malta has tasked the players with building the grand city of Valletta. In the center of the table, we have the main street, which serves as the scoring track. On either side of the street, there'll be potential buildings and peoples associated with those buildings. When constructed and subsequently upgraded, these buildings will score you points. Players start with the same deck of people cards, and will always have 5 of them in your hand. On your turn, you can play 3 and perform the actions on them. After your turn is over, those people go to the discard pile and you draw more from your deck. When your deck is exhausted, you shuffle the discard pile and make a new deck. Yup, just like a deck building game. Often these characters will generate you resources that will later be used in tandem with your builder card to claim and construct one of the buildings in the city. If the building is adjacent to one or more properties you already own, then it becomes cheaper. When you construct a building, you take the person associated with it and put it in your hand. This new person will give you an additional card to play for its action. These new employees give you all sorts of new abilities, like some of them allow you to use your buildings to pull in larger quantities of resources, making your actions more efficient. Each player has a Jean Parisot de Valletta card in their deck, and when played, he advances down the street collecting whatever resource is hiding in the barrel he stumbles across. He also allows you to fire one of your characters or hire a new one that somebody previously fired. Either after someone builds their 8th building, a player reaches the end of the street with their score marker, or Jean Parisot de Valletta gets to the end of the road, the end phase will begin. During the end phase, all players shuffle their discard piles back into their deck and run through the entire deck one last time, scoring as many points as possible. After all players have completed their final action and all final points are scored, the player with the most points is lauded throughout time as the best builder who aided the Order of Malta in building the magnificent city of Valletta. I'm going to start off by saying that I really do like Valletta. I think it's an excellently designed game and does a bunch of unique things here. I guess one of my only negatives about it is that it's probably a little bit too much on the lighter end of the scale for me. I would kind of put it between light Euro and medium Euro. It's kind of like a medium rare kind of Euro game. I like heavier, chunky games that I can really sink my teeth into. And this one never felt like it was super, super difficult to play while I was playing it. I didn't have tons of really, really hard choices to make. That being said, I really enjoyed the game itself. I look at Euro games kind of like this. I mean, some games you're playing against the game. They're sort of punishing style games. You really have to pay attention to every move you make or you're going to just completely screw yourself. And then there's the other kinds of games that you're really playing against the other players because the game themselves are not difficult to play. The decisions are not that meaty, but you're kind of playing against the other players, making the best decisions that you can to beat them. This one falls on that side of the scale. Now, I want to start by saying that I like the theme a lot of this game. You're helping to build this city, and the way that the board is laid out with the rows of buildings and the main street down the center, it really does capture the feeling of constructing a city in that respect. And you're hiring these employees. And the employees are going into your deck and you can use them, you know, they're working on things. And when they come back around that you can use them again, they're ready to go. It feels good. It feels like I'm building a team of expert workers here. And that's where the deck building comes in. And that's one of these unique mechanics that I really like about the game. It utilizes deck building as one small aspect of this grander game. This is how you take actions, by using the cards you have in your hand. And of course, like a deck building game, you discard them and reshuffle them and they come back around. When you get new ones, they go into that deck. I think it uses deck building in a really cool way here. All of those characters have their abilities. It's the way you generate resources. It's the way you build things. And you have to wait for those cards to come back around to use them again. I like that aspect a lot. It's not a super heavy deck building game, and it isn't complex, and it doesn't sort of, you know, spread its tendrils into every aspect of this game, but it is the core of how it works. And I like it. I like that a lot. The characters themselves, when you build those buildings, you get the character. He's a new employee of yours. It's neat to try to figure out the strategies, try to figure out which strategy avenue am I going to go down? Because obviously you start the game, you have a bunch of guys that give you one wood, one stone. And it's really hard to get anything going with those guys because they're really bad at their jobs. You want to get some guys that are good at their jobs. You want to start generating all of these resources very efficiently. And it's neat because you can't do all of them. You can be really good at stone, but you're not going to be really good at wood or something like that. Or you pick wood and stone, but you're not going to be good at money and you're not going to be good at bricks. So it's impossible to be good at all of them and really get anything important done. So you got to pick paths, and you have to mitigate your need for wood in some capacity. Because some characters that sort of omit the need for wood later down the line. So you're figuring out the best course of action and the best characters to pick. And of course, the buildings that you get are all worth victory points. So you're going for the victory point buildings as well. I dig this concept. It was fun to play this all out, and I enjoyed pretty much every aspect of this game. I would have to say that there's one issue that I didn't like as much about it is I really think that there needs to be more variety of the cards and more varieties of the characters. Because really when you build the board, you randomly put them out and you put out all the characters that go with those buildings. There's probably like 2, 3, maybe 4 cards left over from each deck that you're not using. And I would really like there to be more than that. I would like there to be more options so the game was a little different every time you play. Now, the difference in each game now is really just the layout. And you might get some more brick guys than you get of wood guys in this game, like one extra one. So it doesn't really impact the game that drastically, those extra cards that are left out. I would like some more guys. I would like some more buildings. I would like this to be a different experience every time I play, and it's not. It's pretty much the same style of game every time. But fun is fun, right? So if you still have fun doing that, I just don't think that you're going to get as much replayability out of this game. Now, a couple aspects that I absolutely do love about this game is first, this Jean Parizeau de Valletta card that everybody has in their deck to start with. This guy's neat because, that's sort of like the time clock of the game in a sense. Every time you play him, he moves down, you get an extra resource, kind of a random resource, and you get to hire and fire your guys. So that's sort of culling your deck there. And we'll talk about that in a minute, how it's kind of interesting how culling works, but you get to fire some guys, and if somebody fired a guy that you want, you take him, or you want an extra builder, you take him during that time. But what's really neat about it is how he moves down the path. You get extra victory points if you build a building that's in the same column that he's in right now. That seems like a very light mechanic, like almost a throwaway mechanic, but it really isn't. Because what this achieves in the game is it keeps the action moving around the board, and it breeds a lot of conflict with the other players. Because there's if you're playing a 4-player game, there's 6 cards in that column. There's 4 of you, and everybody wants to build where he is to get those extra victory points. Victory points are gold in this game. So that keeps everybody focused in the same area of the board all the time. So there's conflict. There's people trying to go for the same buildings, and you have to play smarter and faster to be able to get those before someone else gets them. Even though you wouldn't think of that just reading the rules, but in action, it really beefs up this game quite a bit and makes it much cooler than you think. Now, to sort of end this whole thing, I want to talk about one thing that makes this game amazing. One single mechanic that I've never seen anybody else do before, and this mechanic makes this game awesome. It's the end phase. Whenever, usual games, they'll say okay, when you get to the end of the track, the last end phase happens and everybody goes around, does one action. Not this game. When the game ends, you take your entire discard pile, shuffle it in your deck, and you run through that entire deck one last time. So the game's going to go on another 15, 20 minutes after that, roughly. Yeah, 15 minutes maybe. This is great. This is the epitome of paying attention to the player's fun. Because you've built a deck, you've built an engine with that deck, and you get to watch that engine work one last time before the end of the game, all the way through. And it lets you just completely reap the benefits of your hard work throughout the entire game, one last time, scoring all the points you possibly can. That is terrific. It's almost like I'm excited for the end of the game because it's finally done, and here it goes, and you get to do it. absolutely wonderful. And what's cool about that is, I mentioned earlier how you can fire guys out of your deck and throw them away. Well, that thins your deck, which means you get less actions at the end. So you have to kind of balance that. Do I really want to get rid of this guy? Because I can use him at the end of the game. Now, he's not going to be helpful during the game because he's sort of clogging up your deck. But then at the end, you can get some extra action. So is he good enough to hold on to, or do you really need to get rid of him? There's some decisions there to make. Dude, that end phase is the best. The best. I love it. I think it makes this game go from a solid 6 to a solid 8. I like it. So, in summary, if you like Euro games, I think this is a good one to check out. It's got a good set of mechanics, it's got a unique set of mechanics, and it works really well. It's just a fun game. They paid attention to making the game fun first. That's what I like about it. Valletta. Thanks so much for joining me for my review of Valletta. If you enjoy board games, card games, miniatures games, role-playing games, check out our audio podcast. You can find it at thesecretcabal.com or on iTunes. And if you're here and you're so inclined, please click the subscribe link down below there so you can be alerted whenever I put up new videos. And until next time, have a good one.